First, I got to get a call to order
Yeah, I'll call this meeting, annual budget meeting to order.
at 6:55. Okay. All right, guys. Should I pull a Sean and just ask if you guys have any questions? Let's just move on here. Is mine gonna work? That's the question that I have here. First off, I'm gonna hand these out because I like to have a backup. Plus, sometimes flipping through them is a little bit easier if you can get those guys down there. Tell them.
This is what we got in the email.
This is what you got in the email. However, Jesse, this is not popping up for me.
What you got?
Well, I just plugged my computer in and now I have nothing. I'll give that to Jason. Okay. So Jesse will come up and work on this. I'm going to tell you right off the top, I had to make 2 changes to what I sent you guys in the email. The first was we were able to lower transportation from 650 to 640, and I'll explain the reasoning, but I believe you guys all remember that last month
The route changes.
we changed routes.
Yep.
And I remembered yesterday. So what went out on Friday was needed to be recalculated. So we rechanged the routes. That led to less expenditure need, but it also lowered our revenue from the state, and it changed our building reserve amount. So the balance of that kept basically what we presented, or what I had uploaded prior to on Friday, the same. We had the same mill levies and basically the same property tax requirements with that. So Ms. Nesper helped me out here. Let's start with the general budget. This was the hardest one to explain. But basically House Bill 156 changed the calculation at the county level to equalize the amount that is coming out of, if you look on our budget report summary, column H. So if you look at the 26 budget report, column H, there's $174,309 that would be paid for via our district property tax requirements. If you look on the 27, there is 0 there. I called OPI, asked them if that had to do with House Bill 156 and equalization, and their answer was yes. I asked them, is there any way I can let my board members know before they ask me this question in public what that amount will be? And they said, we won't know that amount until October. I talked to MTSBA, Mr. Marchant. They sent me a unofficial spreadsheet and basically told me that that number last year, if you look at that number, is about 36 mills. Equalization would probably lower that to around 26 to 28 mills. So equalization for us means less money coming out of our local property taxpayers' pockets, but it does get spread out across the county a little bit more. So with that being said, then our district mill levies that we'll report this year are 0. And I asked them how they felt about that, and the lady that I worked with at OPI told me, in her quote, I believe this isn't great legislation, but it happened, and so this is the calculation how Mayfairs and OPI are handling it. The second piece of that is, and we discussed this in the past, the amount of money that we get in from tuition, that $12,973, if you look up there, is basically a change from our preliminary in the blue column over to the right. In years past, that amount came in from school districts whose kids were coming to our school. So basically they paid a portion of that tuition to the general fund. It was used to equalize those monies across the county requirement in the past. So that $12,973 would have lowered the county tax amount. Because the calculation changed, we now take that amount, we add it on top of our general fund amount. So we don't come up with this calculation. The state comes up with the calculation. Our preliminary budget was $4,080,000 roughly. Our new recommendation is going to be $4,093,000, 708 or 781 and 16 cents. That is all basically forced through the program and the calculations that we have to do prior to coming to this meeting. So there's a difference of $87,539. That has to do with the 3% inflationary increase. Our A and B numbers that we had over the last year, they did not go up, but they were spread across a 5-year period, which kept us from feeling, a major blow to the attendance. And the change 2 years ago to our quality educator payment, which we have worked to keep our minimum salaries in play with that so that we can get that quality educator payment. So your general budget recommendation will be $4,093,000, or roughly $4,093,000. Any questions on that? No, it's not ideal to explain either, and it's pretty much a big change this year. Transportation. We are entering year 4 of our transportation contract. Last year we had $630,000 budgeted for that. Preliminary, I looked at anywhere from 4 to 6%. I didn't know what CPI plus was going to be based on our plus one based on our year 4 and 5 in our 5-year contract. So we have to estimate. It's once again a piece of legislation that I don't know is necessarily useful. I get why it's there, but estimating what we're going to do in August and March is not always the easiest thing to do, especially when we don't know what the year is going to look like, end of the year is going to look like yet. In recalculating our routes, we saved about $20,000, but we lost about $10,000 in revenue from the state when we did that. Basically, we get an on-schedule amount that comes from the state based on the number of miles that are driven. If you look at the 26 report and the 27 report, in column G, you see 216,124 and 26. We lowered that down to 207,000 and 27 based on driving fewer miles. So we had to make up for that amount of revenue, and that will end up going in your column H, paid out by the taxpayers this year. The other major difference there, if you look in column F in 26 and column F in 27, our unreserved fund balance reappropriated. What that means is the money left over from last tax year, we dipped into that more this last year than we had in previous years. So we have to ask the taxpayers for that additional amount. It's not additional because we were basically had an overage of $34,000 last year, but what we did was we were a lot closer to what the budget was than we have been in the past years. So we have to fill in that amount with this year's tax requirements. Mills. I will go over mills in a minute because I want to show you a trend, but any questions on transportation? Okay. Tuition. Tuition, we utilize the OPI calculator for our 5 highest needs SPED students. We only use 5. You can use more. When I utilize that calculator, we could use our permissive levies to get $126,000. Over the past, I want to say 10 years, we've came in at about $103,000 as our permissive levy ask. Okay? So I built that into our preliminary March amount, as well as, here's another spot where the legislation seems to be a little broken. We asked for the money that we pay tuition for students that leave our district and go to Ronan, Charlotte, or other districts. We pay that out of Fund 213, or tuition. That was projecting to be around $10,000 in March. That number came in at $10,498.55. So that's how close we were. So we added that amount to our tuition amount, meaning that we were pretty close to right on in what we were requesting in our March prelim. I know that Jason said it out loud before, but if you do the math in your head with the way the equalization bill went through, you are hitting your permissive taxpayers to pay your out-of-district tuition, but you're also then adding the money from other taxpayers into your general fund. So across the county, it could feel like a double dip. You see how that works out? Like
our taxpayers are paying for school.
Yes.
Their taxpayers.
But instead of offsetting, in the past where that offset the tax requirements, now it's added on top of. So it becomes a revenue source because of the change in legislation. And not ideal. It's what it is. So I believe that it'll probably be fixed by next year. But we're gonna roll through this year with
Is
that.
this the third year of that?
Yeah, and as far as the tuition bill in general, what we've seen, this will be the second year that we're paying it out, and the third year that we're taking information or gathering information on what students that we're going to invoice and bill, right? So we'll use this year for next year's budget. We're paying off of last year's attendance. So the way it works out for us, and I'll show you actually I can show you right now. Tuition. Last year we paid out $10,498. We brought in $12,973. The difference is $3,426. We're basically trading money across funds. Some schools it's different. Dayton has a lot of kids that go to Polson. They have a rather big bill. You were talking with Big Fork. Tom Stack said that they have a pretty hefty amount that is coming tuition in because they have kids come from Treston and all over the place. So they'll see $200,000+ that they have to figure out what they're going to do with it, but it'll be a one-time expense. It's not reoccurring, so they need to make their decisions based on that. For us, our amount's pretty minimal. So, retirement. Last year, we came in with if you look in column F there on the 27, we came in with a reappropriated amount of roughly $48,000. Basically, a couple of our heavy hitters that we had the prior year weren't on there. So we had a March prelim of $720,000. I'm pretty comfortable that we're going to come back in under that amount, except for the fact that we added $15,500 for Missoula Co-op. They send us a bill every year. We didn't have that information in March. It will be added to our retirement bill in, I want to say May is when we end up paying that. So that, however, does not hit your local taxpayers directly. It is equalized across the county. So everybody at this table, we're paying for retirement for Charlotte School, Ronan School, like all of our money goes into that pot. Anybody working at the county, all of our money goes into that pot and is equalized across on that. So this is just an ask basically to keep us in the green and not fall into the red where we have to fund it from a different source. So Adult Ed last year, Adult Ed was a pretty robust program. And basically what that means is we carried over an amount of roughly, I want to say $15,000 in unreserved funds reappropriated. It's basically a fund balance. We're allowed by law to carry $8,575 of that in reserves. So when you add that to the difference, you come up with a fund recommendation of $24,501, but the only tax requirements will be for that fund reserve of $8,575. So you would be looking at 1.42 mils is what you would be asking your taxpayers versus 1.48 last year. So you're seeing a decrease there. The Flex Fund. We had a budget last year of $36,000. We had a fund balance in that of $43,433. If you look at the next column, column G on our 27 report, the state funds $33,161. All of this money comes directly from the state. It goes directly into the Flex Fund. However, to spend it, we have to add our fund balance to the amount coming in this next year. So our budget would be $76,600.
Spend that out.
Flex in here. Okay. But if we don't do that, then we can't. We have to have the full budget authority to spend that full amount. So we have to set it for the full $76,000. That amount is going down by every year, by the way. 33,000 is the lowest that I've seen it, but it's probably winding down, and it's like how long they were going to fund it anyway. So, building reserve is the last one here. We are by law allowed to permissively levy 20 mills. However, and if you read I tried to explain it in the write-up. They fund a certain amount from the state, called the Small Major Maintenance Aid funding. That's basically what the Quality Schools grant that we were talking about earlier turned into. So the state will fund a portion, but we're required to fund a portion from our own end. And it's really kind of just a mix and match of where we maximize that amount in Mayfair. So I'll add 30,000 in, it'll say I've got X amount of revenue, and I play with it until I hit the maximum amount that we receive from the state and the minimum amount that it would charge us as a county tax requirement. This year, the max is in column G, 99,615 we would get from the state, requiring only 35,700 from our local tax base. So instead of district mill levies of 20, we would only hit the district mill levies at 5.9. Okay, that's the dance to maximize that. If you as a board decided to make that property tax requirement 0, your revenue from the state would also be 0. You don't get to play the game where it shifts up and down based on what our property tax request will be. So that money is not there for school districts who, I've heard business managers or school board members say that don't put skin in the game. Like, the state money's not there if your district's not willing to run a levy. And we've been doing it for how many years now? I would like to say 7, something like that. So this just maximizes our amount from the state and minimizes the amount that we require from our district taxpayers. So any questions on that? This is just historical now. I've been doing this since 2020 or 2023, it looks like, is when I started doing this presentation. 2019 is our district mill levies prior to when we ran our bond, okay? In 2020, you'll see that we had a huge jump in our mill levies, 330 mills. That was the I think we added 125 mills from our the bond that we passed that year. Let me look real quick, I have it here. Yeah, 125 of those was projected from the bond, okay? Underneath that, you'll see our taxable value at the time we ran the bond was $3.294 million. Come all the way on over here and check out what they did this year. The taxable value of our homes in Lake County jumped up to over $6 million, okay? So it's almost double what it was when we ran that bond all that many years ago. And you can see how as you go up in taxable value, your mill levies required go down. So we are now in 2027, if you add all of these up, and it doesn't include our equalization from 201 or our general fund because we don't know that number yet, but we're down to 160 mills because of the change in taxable value. And that's the interesting thing, is that's 80 mills less than what we were prior to when we ran the bond. That's how much things have changed in the time since we did that. So that's a big jump. For lack of time, I have a cool little mill calculator that I can show anybody at some time, but if basically my projection is unofficially, if your house doesn't go up in value because of this taxable value increase and they haven't notified any of us yet, you should see your taxes probably go down based on the general fund spreadsheet at the state level. I'm not really comfortable showing that in public because I don't want it to be like set in stone. But that is basically meaning that the higher value homes have come in and kind of lowered the amount of times you're going to be asked to mill on your own home. So it's interesting how it works. That being said, this is your decision. The budget recommendation comes from us and basically how we're able to manage that throughout the year and going forward. And I think this is pretty conservative. It's pretty tight. I don't see a lot of filler in here at all. And I do believe it keeps us either equal to or will possibly lower our taxes in the next year.
I have to get a little closer to.
Is it too tight? With the cost of everything.
I love that you
nowadays.
ask me that every year because transportation I feel like is consistently tight. But we do have that unreserved fund balance that we roll over every year, meaning that I project to be between $25,000 and $35,000 of like excess next year in transportation. And the comfort that I have is that if we do ask for more this year, they take it off of your bill next year. So I've continued to try to like keep that going down. If we utilized all of that, like your district property tax would go up another $35,000, and we'd have zero funds reappropriated. I've tried to manage that so we see just kind of a more steady effect on our taxes, because at the beginning of the 5-year agreement, we were looking at 10%, 9%, 8%. We knew that we were going to see big bumps. So my way to manage that across the board for the taxpayers was to kind of manage that unreserved fund balance. And I would say by next year, we'll probably be able to bump that up a little bit more again because we're in year 5 and we'll prepare ourselves for, an open contract. As far as the rest of them go, tuition, if there was something the board wanted to do there, we could utilize the SPED calculators and come up with justification for more money. But it would be another ask on your taxpayers. Adult ed, I really see the way that that's paying for itself, that I don't see the need to fund any more than the reserves that are on hand. And the rest of it really does come in from the community.
Yeah.
So, and then the building reserve, to me, that's maxed out. You could ask for 20 mill levies. If you ask for more, you're gonna take down that amount from the state. So,
Really?
Yeah.
So the more you ask, it's
we could ask for all of those and get at $6,054 a mill. We could get
But where you balance it at now is the point where the more
we
you
get
ask,
the
it's
maximum amount from the
Okay.
states and without hitting our taxpayers any more than it needs to be. So that's in my estimation, those would be your two spots. You could run transportation for the $650 that we had as a prelim budget or more, and you could also look into tuition and run it for more. I believe it would be easily justifiable using the OPI calculator. I keep those on hand for any audit purposes. So. I don't show them because they involve students' names.
I just don't see the cost of things going down.
Yeah.
We used to build in additional money in transportation, so all the paving, our parking lot was never paved, bus garage was never paved. We used to build in 50, 60,000 in transportation that we would use for paving, and we've kind of had to, we haven't been able to do that. That's one thing that we've had to take away, that we were kind of slowly making progress
Prior to
on.
2020, that was
Yeah.
one of the items that was built into transportation, and we knew we were going to have a big ask coming in for the bond, which, I mean, amazingly, if you look at it now, the value of past, projects is 125 mils is now 68 mils. $4.5 million bond is, I don't know what it would cost now, 14.5 million. What would be the cost of that project? So,
Okay.
that's the recommendation. It's up to you guys.
Did you have a price of a mill there?
So if you look up there, right next to you, basically, oh no, Mr. Marchand, you go ahead and divide that by 1,000. So the price per mill would be $6,054. Interesting. When we ran the bond, we were at about $3,300 per mill. So we were asking for a lot of mills to cover that big project. It's almost doubled in the last 8 years.
It's still a fraction of Olson, Missoula. Our mills, it has doubled, but it's still a small amount. Which is why we can't run. The cost.
I was trying to translate your narrative account here into Rod's GA talking points.
Okay.
Uh,
Did you use ChatGPT for that?
I didn't. I was using my lawnmower.
Gotcha.
And So, decreasing the tax burden on a constituent of a taxpayer is certainly one of the things that what else would you say that was good about it?
So that's funny. I was asked a question by a former student of yours last week, and he kind of made me think about it. I hadn't really ever thought about it. He asked me what amount of your school expenditure budget is provided by the local taxpayer. And I was like, I've never thought about that. So I went back through once we got done with this, just the other day, and I looked at it, and it's about 12%. 12% of what we have here is provided by your local taxpayers. The rest of it would be spread out either federally, throughout the state, throughout grants. Here's another interesting one I can share with you, Mr. Marchant, which is like one of the things that we're battling. That's federal money right there, right? Those are all of our grants, Title VII, Title I, AWARE, Gear Up, Carl Perkins. 2024, we had $740,000. 2025, $720,000. This year, $608,000. We're seeing less and less money come in via federal grants. Impact Aid is also federal money. So we haven't seen a dip in the calculation for that. It's just whether the fight's there, whether or not that's going to continue. So that's a fight every day. Anything that doesn't get covered by this will generally come out of Impact Aid. So if we have year-over-year funding things that we want to continue, that difference would come out of Impact Aid. But the interesting thing, like I said, is like once I looked at school nutrition, all the grants, everything, roughly 12% is funded locally. And if we took the bond out of there, it would probably be 7 to 8%. So I think that this board has done a really good job monitoring the impact they have on the property tax requirements for our district.
It'll be interesting to see how we compare to other communities, local.
I know we didn't make cuts a couple of years ago, and I know a lot of them did.
Yeah.
And that was planning ahead for what was considered fiscal cliff after ESSER funding.
ESSER funding.
Yeah. If you put that money into people, you had to find a way to keep that money coming for people. We utilized that money in a different way, and so we were able to keep our people in a pot where we could manage it and not see huge, repercussions within our community. Now the flip side was like Missoula. Those few years it was hard to hire teachers because Missoula hired every single teacher that was available, if you remember right.
And they fired him.
Yeah, and they fired him.
So everybody good? Anybody have any other questions? Take a motion to approve our budget.
I'll make the motion to approve the 26-27 budget recommendations.
Second that.
Moving to second, any more discussion, questions, comments? Okay, all in favor of the budget?
Good job.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
All right.
We got one more meeting. Peter, we're going to adjourn that one at 7:23.
7:23. All right, let's call the regular board meeting to order.
To the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.